Samantha never expected to be the target of gossip at work, especially not when she was already struggling with an unexpected pregnancy. As a single poor woman, she had learned to endure cruel whispers and judgment from her colleagues. But one conversation in the break room changed everything. The laughter at her expense turned to disbelief when the CEO, Ethan Blackwood, walked in. No one knew he was the father of her baby. No one knew what was about to happen next. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Samantha sat at her desk, trying to focus on the mountain of work piling up in front of her. But the whispers of her colleagues echoed through the open plan office, louder than any email notification or phone call. Did you hear? She is pregnant and unmarried. What a mess. The words sliced through the air, each one like a dagger aimed straight at her heart. She had tried to block it out, but the constant judgment was becoming unbearable. At 24, with no family support, no money, and no partner, it seemed like the whole world had turned against her. But what could she do? Life had thrown her a curveball that she had no idea how to catch. She had no choice but to continue. The laughter behind her back, the snickers as she passed the lunchroom. Samantha tried to ignore it all. She tried to hide her growing belly beneath oversized sweaters and long coats. Every day it felt like the weight of her pregnancy was nothing compared to the weight of the judgment she carried with her. But today was different. Today, as she walked into the break room, she could hear the voices, louder than ever. She thinks she can just show up here, acting like nothing is wrong. Who gets pregnant before marriage? Her life is ruined. The words stung, but she kept her head high. She had learned to put on a brave face, even if her heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. What Samantha did not know was that the conversation was not just about her. It was about the baby she was carrying. What Samantha did not know was that the man responsible for her pregnancy was the one person no one would ever dare gossip about. Ethan Blackwood, the CEO of the company, walked into the break room just as Samantha's eyes filled with tears. He had not been expected. He had never been a regular presence in the office, keeping to his high-rise office far above the cubicles and desks where employees like Samantha spent their days. But today he was here, his piercing eyes locking onto hers with a gaze that made her heart race, but for reasons she could never understand. Her colleagues froze, their laughter cutting off mid-sentence. The words they had been whispering about her seemed to hang in the air, almost as if they were waiting for someone to acknowledge them. And that is when Ethan Blackwood, the powerful CEO, did something no one saw coming. Samantha stood frozen in place, unsure of what to do. Ethan's presence in the break room felt out of place, like a storm suddenly appearing in the middle of a calm, sunny day. The other employees slowly stood up from their seats, their faces pale, unsure whether they should be speaking or staying silent. Then Ethan's voice broke through the tension. "I hope you are all enjoying your lunch," he said, his tone so calm that it sent a shiver down Samantha's spine. But what he said next, it would change everything. "Samantha, I just wanted to let you know that I have heard all about the rumors circulating in this office, and I think it's time everyone learned the truth." The room fell silent. All eyes were on Samantha, who stood frozen, her face a mix of confusion and dread. She had no idea what was about to happen. Ethan's words, though calm, carried an undeniable power. She could feel the tension in the air, thick as smoke. "I am the father of her child," Ethan said, his voice sharp and clear without hesitation, "and I expect every single one of you to treat her with the respect she deserves." Samantha's heart raced as the words hit her like a ton of bricks. She had never imagined that the powerful, untouchable CEO, someone who never even noticed her at work, was the father of her child. She stood there trying to process the truth. Her colleagues, now fully aware of the situation, exchanged shocked glances, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. In that moment, Samantha realized that her life was about to change in ways she never could have predicted. But as the silence stretched on, her mind raced. What would happen next? Would they apologize? Would things go back to normal? And most importantly, would her life finally start to make sense again? The tension in the room was palpable, every second feeling like an eternity. But Samantha knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. What had just been a quiet, whispered judgment was now out in the open, and everything was about to shift. The truth was out, and it was more powerful than any gossip or rumor could ever be. As the room began to stir, some employees started to mumble apologies, while others looked down at their feet, embarrassed by what they had just learned. But for Samantha, this was only the beginning. She had no idea where this would lead her, but she knew one thing. She was no longer the girl they could gossip about. She was something much bigger now, someone to be respected no matter what. And it was time for everyone else to realize that. But as her colleagues slowly shuffled out of the break room, leaving her alone with Ethan, Samantha could feel a new storm brewing. What was his next move? What was he really thinking? And most importantly, what did it all mean for her and her baby? The answers were out there, waiting to be discovered. But Samantha was not ready for what was coming next. The break room was still. No one dared to speak. The hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed louder than the silence that hung in the air. Samantha could feel every pair of eyes on her, some filled with confusion, others with disbelief. Ethan Blackwood's words had shattered everything. The man they all revered, the man they thought they could never touch, had just declared something unimaginable. He was the father of her child. Samantha did not know whether she should be angry, relieved, or simply numb. Her mind was racing, questions flooding in, each one louder than the next. How could this be? Why had he never said anything? Why had he kept the secret from her until now? It was as if the entire world had just flipped upside down. Her hands trembled as she tried to steady herself. This was not supposed to happen. She had spent months navigating the cruel world of gossip and judgment, trying to survive each day as it came. She had never expected her life to take a turn like this. No one had. But now there was no denying it. The whispers, the laughter, the cruel judgment she had been enduring. They were all nothing compared to the power of the truth that had just been exposed. Ethan stood still, his eyes locked on hers, unflinching. His presence was commanding, but there was something in the way he looked at her, something that made Samantha feel like she was seeing him for the first time. No longer was he the distant CEO who ruled from afar. No longer was he the untouchable man whose decisions shaped their company. Now he was the father of her child, a connection that neither of them could escape. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make sense of everything. "Why did you not tell anyone?" she found herself asking, her voice shaky but clear. Ethan's expression softened slightly, but the confidence never left his gaze. "I wanted to protect you, Samantha," he said quietly. "I never wanted you to be treated the way you have been. I knew what the office would say, what they would think. I thought if I kept my distance, it would be easier for you. But that was a mistake." Samantha struggled to understand what he was saying. He had tried to protect her by staying away. All those months of pain, of silent suffering, and he had known the entire time? It made no sense. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something deeper than just a man trying to fix a mistake. There was regret there, and something else. Vulnerability. She had never seen that side of him before. The room seemed to shrink as the tension built. Her colleagues had started to gather their things, slowly filing out of the break room. The whispers, the judgment, they had all faded into the background. They now knew the truth, and there was nothing left for them to do but leave. Samantha could feel their eyes still on her as they passed, but they did not dare speak. And then, it was just Ethan and her. The man who had shattered her world and, at the same time, had just given her something she never expected. An answer. He had been the key all along, even if she had not realized it until now. Ethan took a step closer, his gaze softening. "Samantha," he said, his voice much gentler than before, "I know this is a lot to process, but I need you to understand. I care about you. I care about your baby, and I will do everything in my power to help you, but I need you to trust me." Her breath caught in her throat. The words were heavy, each one carrying a weight she had never expected to feel. Trust him? How could she trust him? After everything, after all the years of silence, how could she simply turn to him for help? But in his eyes, she saw something that made her pause. Maybe it was the sincerity, or maybe it was the raw emotion that she had never imagined could exist in someone like him. Ethan Blackwood, the CEO of the company, the man everyone respected and feared, was now standing before her, asking her for trust. It was almost too much to comprehend. Samantha swallowed hard. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why did you not say something sooner?" Ethan sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly as if the weight of his decisions was finally catching up to him. "I made a mistake. I thought I could protect you from all of this. But I was wrong. You are not alone, Samantha. You never were." He paused, looking at her with a depth that made her heart race. "I will be here for you, for the baby, for everything." The words hung in the air between them, charged with a tension that neither could deny. Samantha's emotions were a whirlwind, spinning uncontrollably. She had no idea what to do with this newfound truth, this new reality that she had never seen coming. As the seconds ticked by, the truth settled in. The CEO, Ethan Blackwood, was offering her something she had never imagined: support. It was not what she expected, not at all. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was exactly what she needed. And now, with the truth exposed, nothing would ever be the same again. But the most pressing question remained. What would Samantha do next? Would she accept his offer, knowing that it would change everything? Or would she continue to face the world alone, carrying the weight of her decisions and her pregnancy without anyone by her side? The answer, it seemed, was still unclear. But one thing was certain. The road ahead was going to be more complicated than she ever imagined. The silence was overwhelming. Samantha could barely process the weight of Ethan's words. She looked at him, but her mind was a mess of confusion, anger, and disbelief. The man who had been the source of all her struggles, the man whose decisions had shaped her entire world, he was now offering her something unexpected, something that felt like a lifeline, but at the same time, a curse. "Why should I believe you?" Samantha finally asked, her voice shaking but resolute. She felt a surge of anger bubble up, but she fought it down. "Why now, Ethan? You have had all this power, all this influence over the company, over my life, and you chose to stay silent. For months, you let me fight this alone." Ethan's eyes hardened for a moment, but his expression softened again. He took a careful step toward her, his face filled with an emotion that felt almost foreign coming from someone like him. Regret. He had never shown this side to anyone, especially not to her. But in that moment, Samantha saw it all. The man who had built his empire with ruthless precision, now standing in front of her, vulnerable, remorseful, and seeking redemption. "I thought I was protecting you," Ethan said quietly, his voice almost pleading. "I thought if I stayed out of it, if I kept my distance, it would be easier for you. But I was wrong. I was selfish. And I hurt you more than I could have ever imagined." Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as his words hit her like a punch. She had spent so long hiding from the truth, from the reality of her situation, and now she was being confronted with it all at once. The man she had never wanted to need, now standing in front of her, offering his help, his support, his presence. It was too much. Too much to process. Too much to accept. "You should have told me," Samantha whispered, her voice barely audible. "You should have been there from the beginning. I did not deserve to be treated like this. You had all the power, all the resources, and you just watched as I fought to keep my job, my dignity, my sanity intact." Ethan flinched at her words, but he did not look away. He did not try to justify himself. He simply stood there as if accepting everything she said, as if the weight of her words was something he knew he deserved. Samantha could see the turmoil in his eyes, the internal battle he was fighting. It was not just guilt. It was something deeper, something he had kept hidden for far too long. "I know I made a mistake," he said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "But I cannot undo the past. All I can do is try to make things right now. You and the baby, you both deserve better than this. I want to help you. I want to be there for you, Samantha." The room seemed to shrink as his words settled over her like a heavy blanket. Samantha wanted to scream, to yell at him for all the pain he had caused her. But something inside her held her back. Something deep within her knew that yelling at him would not change anything. She had been through too much already. She had lost too much. But could she truly forgive him? Could she truly trust him after everything? The questions swirled in her mind like a storm, each one more overwhelming than the last. It was not just about Ethan, about his past mistakes. It was about her future, her baby, the choices she had to make now. She could not afford to be naive anymore. She had to think clearly. She had to think about the life she was bringing into this world and whether Ethan was truly someone she could rely on. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I do not know if I can trust you, Ethan," she said, the words feeling heavy in her chest. "You have done nothing but hurt me since the beginning. You have kept your distance, and now you expect me to believe that you want to help. After everything?" Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had no right to ask for her trust, not after what he had put her through. But he had to try. He had to make things right. For her, for their child. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness," he said softly, "but I am asking for it anyway. I will prove to you that I am serious about this. I will do whatever it takes to make things right. You do not have to do this alone. I will be here. I will be here for both of you." Samantha felt a mix of emotions, anger, doubt, but also something else. Something she had not expected to feel. Hope. She did not know if she could ever trust Ethan again, but for the first time in a long while, she felt as if maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for things to be different. But there was still one thing that weighed heavily on her mind. The baby. Would Ethan truly be there for the child? Would he keep his promises? Or was this just another empty gesture to make him feel better? Samantha did not know the answers, but she could not ignore the possibility that this was the beginning of something new, something that could change everything. As the silence between them stretched on, Samantha found herself torn. Part of her wanted to walk away, to leave Ethan behind and figure this out on her own. But another part of her, the part that had always believed in second chances, could not let go of the hope that maybe, just maybe, Ethan was finally ready to be the man she needed him to be. And as the moments ticked by, the answer seemed to grow clearer. The future was uncertain, but with Ethan now standing before her, offering his help, it felt as though the first step had been taken. What would happen next? Only time would tell. Samantha's heart raced, her thoughts crashing into one another like waves in a storm. She had listened to Ethan's words, the apology, the promises, and yet deep down she could not shake the feeling that something was missing. Was this truly a change? Or was it just another attempt to smooth things over, to fix the surface without ever addressing the real issues? As Ethan stood there, waiting for a response, the weight of the silence grew unbearable. His gaze never left her, his eyes pleading for the chance to prove himself. He had finally acknowledged his mistakes, admitted his wrongdoings, but Samantha was not sure if that was enough. The hurt, the years of feeling neglected and abandoned, those scars did not heal with a few words. She had learned that the hard way. Her mind kept returning to the child. What kind of future would this baby have? Would it be one filled with the kind of uncertainty and disappointment she had lived through for so long? She could not bear the thought of dragging her child into a world of broken promises, of half-hearted gestures that fell short when it mattered the most. "I want to believe you," Samantha said, her voice low, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "I really do, but I have been let down too many times before, and I cannot put my baby in that position. I cannot let him or her grow up in a world where people say one thing and do another." Ethan stepped forward, his expression one of determination. "I understand. I know I have no right to ask for your trust, but what I am offering is real. I will show you day by day that I am committed to being here for you and the baby, not just with my words, but with my actions. I will be there for you, Samantha. I will prove it." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Samantha could see the pain in his eyes, the struggle he was going through, trying to right the wrongs of his past. But could she risk it? Could she take the chance of opening her heart to him again, only to be disappointed once more? Every instinct inside her screamed to protect herself, to shield her heart from any more hurt. But a small part of her, the part that still longed for something real, for something better, could not completely shut him out. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where they could both be there for the child, where Ethan could truly be the father he had never been before. The thought was terrifying and hopeful all at once. "I do not know if I can believe you yet," she said, her voice trembling, but her words firm. "But I am willing to give you a chance. Just remember, actions speak louder than words. I need you to show me, Ethan. I need you to prove that you can be the man I have always hoped you would be. For the baby, for both of us." Ethan nodded, his expression filled with relief, but he did not smile. He knew this was just the beginning. A chance, yes, but it was fragile. It could be easily shattered if he did not stay true to his word. He had already lost so much, but now he had one last opportunity to make it right. "I will not let you down," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. "I swear I will do everything I can to make things right. For you, for the baby. I will prove that I am worthy of your trust." The room was silent again, the tension between them palpable. Samantha felt a deep sense of uncertainty, but she also felt something else, a small flicker of hope. Could this really be the turning point? Could Ethan truly change? It was too soon to tell, but for the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine the possibility of a future where things could be different. She had always been a fighter, and she was not about to give up now. Not for herself, and certainly not for her baby. She would give him the chance to prove himself, but she would be watching, waiting to see if his actions matched his words. Trust would not come easily, but maybe, just maybe, there was hope for them both. As they stood there, neither one of them speaking, a new understanding began to form between them. This was not just about fixing what had been broken. This was about building something entirely new, something neither of them had expected, but both desperately needed. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, they were no longer walking it alone. Whether or not they would succeed, only time would tell. But in that moment, they had both taken a step towards something better, and that in itself was worth fighting for.